Hey everyone, welcome back to part 2 of our TreeView tutorial. In this part we are going to start off with correcting something. And let me actually run this application and show you what I want to correct. So when you expand this, guys, here, the apple orange here, the two fruits that we have, should have been two individual items versus right now that stack panel is forcing it to become a single item. So that wasn't the intention, so I'm going to get rid of the stack panel to solve that issue. So I'm just going to get rid of these tags. Okay, that should take care of it. Alright, if I run this again, now we should have two items that we can select individually. Okay. Alright, just wanted to get that out of the way, and let's continue with our tutorial. Alright, the next thing I want to talk about is the header. So the header property doesn't have to be just text. It's similar to grid view, data grid, and the grid view in list view. The header can be more than just text. It can be an image. You can add, I don't know, really pretty much anything you want to, any content. So let's go ahead and do a quick example of how to change the content of the header. So I'm going to get rid of this property. Well, not that one, the fruits one. So I'm going to get rid of this fruits header, and instead I'm going to expand the tag TreeView.header, open close, and inside here we can add a wrap panel first, and then I'm going to add an image, give it a size, let's say 20. Let's give it a height of let's say 22. Let's give it a source. Let's see if I can remember the file path. Alright, I think I should be able to. Desktop. Images. Fruits. And prod for that JPEG, I think, and there it is. Yep. So we have an image now, and let's add text as well. And it's going to say fruits again. And let's match the font size with 22. Okay, now we have an image and text for our header. Makes a big difference in presentation. Okay, let's actually change the font size on these other elements as well, other TreeView items, to make it look a little better. Let's get a font size of, let's say 25 for this top level, and 18 for the lowest level. This is 18, right? Well, 20 is fine. Okay. Alright, so now by just adding an image, we made our header more interesting. Okay. Alright, awesome. Okay. The other way of setting the header is by using a data template. Let's go ahead and do a quick example with that too. So for this, I'm going to go inside my TreeView here and open a TreeView resources tag and close it. And we're going to do that for the produce TreeView item. So I'm just going to say data template, give it a key, and let's say produce DT, and close this. So inside here I'm going to add another wrap panel, just like we did before. I'm using wrap panel because of orientation. I mean, you could use stack panel too, setting it to horizontal, but wrap panel is already ready to go. So, and now let's add an image next. Let's get a height of 25 and the source of, I'm gonna copy from here and do a minor change with the file name. Beats the typing. Okay, let's add our quotes, double quotes. Okay, I'm gonna just change this to prod.jpg and add a text block down below. Set the font size to 25 as well, and give it a text of produce. Okay, now let's go back to our header here. Now I don't need this. Instead I'm going to use header template. You could say binding source static resource produce DT. Okay, we should get the same result with the image. The only difference is data template versus having declaring within the TreeView item. So again, depending on scenario, you may prefer one over the other. If it's a one-time deal, then probably would go inline within the item itself. If it's something you want to be able to use somewhere else, then I would go with data template and resource using resources, whether that's window resources or app resources, so on and so forth. So let's run this, let's see how it looks. Okay, still works, perfect. Okay, so that's the header. Okay, so far we did a few examples. Two of those examples with design time data, first and second, and third one we did with runtime data. Before we go any further, I'd like to take a minute and do a little housekeeping. So once we have we get into more examples, we know where things are, and to keep it nice and tidy. Okay, so I'm gonna separate the sections. Let's say this one was our first example. I'm just gonna put inside regions. First the X should do it. Okay, now we can collapse these. And this guy was our second example, I believe. Okay. We could actually include this TreeView too, but anyway, let's go step by step. So this one was our third example. So I'm gonna not sure if I can do the whole thing, but let's do the actual classes. Third example, and actually this is part of the third example too. So let's mark this as third example too, I guess. Okay, now we can collapse these regions, and then we'll bring in some data for our next examples. Let's see if we can collapse a little more here. I think we can get rid of this part here. I'm not sure if we need that anymore. So we mentioned all this stuff. Headers, item control, content control, all that good stuff. So basically I'm gonna actually see, I think I'm just gonna comment this section out. And let's collapse it. Let's go ahead and collapse this stuff again. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna collapse this whole thing. Stack and collapse these columns. And right now we have only a few lines that's showing up. So we've got plenty of room to work with. Okay, so for our next example, I'm going to bring in the data that we used in the previous tutorials. That's the, you'll remember when you see it. So let's go back to our code behind file and go below here. And it's going to be the same stuff we used for the list view and I think list box tutorials and data grid. So I'm going to just copy and paste this stuff here, classes, and bring down below here. Alright, so paste it. I got one error. Let's see why. The name file does not exist in the current context. I think that's because we don't have the file.io system.io namespace. So let's go ahead and add that in, and let's go up here and clean some of this stuff too. Okay, let's clear the namespaces that we are not using. Okay. Alright, so again, you remember this. We had the song class, the artist class, and then genre enum. And we had the songs class that supplied us the data. Okay. The song list is our property that gets its data from this static method. Okay, so let's go back to our design surface and let's start adding stuff. So I'm gonna go to our first column here and add a TreeView. Okay, let's close this, or actually just close this for now. Alright, so we got our TreeView, and next I'm gonna bring the data in. So window resources, I'm going to bring in the local namespace, local column songs. Okay, let's get a key. Let's call this my songs. Okay, cool. And the stuff expanded again. That's a shame. Alright, So what do we need here first? We need an item source, right? Okay, let's bring in the let's go bring in the source, binding source. It's going to be static resource and my songs. That's our item source. And also, if you remember from our previous tutorial, again we need the path, and the path will be the song list property we just seen in our songs class. Okay, so once we have that, our data starts populating. Let's run this and see how it looks. Alright, great. We have a bunch of songs objects. Okay, again, because it's an items collection, items control, and we have an object list of objects, so it doesn't know which properties we want to display. So we need to help out. Okay, so we're going to say display member path. Let's say title. Okay, and now we got our songs back. Okay, feels like just a regular list box, doesn't it? Except this little padding here, space here at the beginning. Other than that, it looks like a regular list box. But of course, if we wanted the list box, we could use the list box, so we really don't need that. The next thing that comes to mind is to have a data template. Right? We could do something like actual item template, TreeView item template, and bring in data template. We could say this is a song object. Actually X type, right? Local song. Okay, and say text block, text, binding, title. Okay, and we'll end up with the same result. Okay, so we want a result like this, right? Because we have, remember, we have the artist subclass that's tied into the song class, or it's nested inside song class, so it's a lower level class. Okay, so we need to establish that connection somehow. Okay, so which means we're not going to use data template. Instead, we are going to use something called hierarchical data template. Okay, now once we do that, well, let me actually keep that for now. We need to supply inside here, we need to, once after setting the data type, we need to supply the item source. Now we can supply the item source to the data template itself, and the item source we are looking for is, let's see, this guy here, artists. Okay, so now if you're on this, we'll have our arrows, and we would have our child elements, but we don't. Okay, normally we would have child elements like here. Alright, but we don't. and that's because we have to define that as well. But the item template only takes one of these guys, so we have to define these in resources. So instead of item template, I'm going to say TreeView.resources. Okay, actually, let me try before doing that. So I need a data template for the artist class. Really, we don't have to set this, but I think it's good to define it. Local artist. Let me actually first do it without it. See what happens. Text box. Text is binding name. I think we have to. How else it's going to know? Let's. So okay. Alright, this error is because the item template won't let, it can only have one child element, right? That's what it says. The property item template is set more than once. So we're going to, instead of item template, we're going to use the resources. Okay. So now error clears. Let's see if it works. Ew, that didn't look good. Okay, let's see what we have. An object added to iDictionary must have a key. Attribute. Line 79. 79 is right here. Okay, so basically I think that's what it's saying. We need to specify the target type. A key attribute or some type of key associated with it. Alright, let's go ahead and set the target type. I mean, data type. So X type. This is going to be the artist, local artist. Okay. I think that should take care of it. Let's build this again. Okay, let's run this, see what happens. Alright, we got our arrows indicating we have child elements and we have our children. And the nice thing about this, if it doesn't have a child element, again, it's not showing the arrow, so you know whether you're going to go in there or not. This, if it's empty, you don't have to waste time to go in there, check there if there's anything in there. Okay, so that's great. Alright, beautiful. So we got a beautiful TreeView with 2 levels of hierarchy. Alright, so we got the parent here and the child as data template. Okay, we don't have anything below this, that's why we are using data template. Okay, so I think we are going to stop here because this is getting quite long, so we'll continue in the next part. Alright, until then, take it easy.